So welcome to the call. Tonight we're going to be going over the commercial purchase and sale agreement. We actually don't cover this as much as we probably should. Many of you are getting opportunities to do 1031 exchanges or have conversations with investors. We actually have some listings also that are commercial properties that would require you to use a commercial purchase and sale agreement. So tonight what we're going to do is cover some of the basics to get you started. Of course, there'll be some more knowledge and you may need to rely on some other commercial brokers in our office to assist you if you get stuck with something, but at least we'll get you pointed in the right direction. That's my goal for tonight's call. On the screen, I have a listing that we've had for quite a while. In commercial, when you say quite a while, that could be a year, it could be 2 years. Commercial properties don't sell as quickly as residential properties. So we will go ahead and cover just the basics tonight of how to write up a purchase and sale agreement using the commercial purchase and sale. Some basics before we get started so you understand. We do have brokers in our office at Best Choice Realty that only specialize in commercial. They don't actually even do residential. Back in 2013 or 14, one of the brokers who used to work at Kidder Matthews came to Best Choice Realty, sat with me in my office and said, Rochelle, why are we not doing commercial? Your main office is in Tukwila, which is a very, very good area to have a commercial firm. And would you allow me to assist the brokers at Best Choice Realty in doing commercial sales? So at that point in time, we looked at what it would take to have a commercial insurance policy, to make sure that we have E&O, to make sure that we had all the proper forms, and the MLS to support that kind of effort. And we went ahead in 2014 and opened up an account with commercial MLS, and also had the ability to get insurance for commercial sales that we're doing here. So we are completely licensed and insured to do commercial sales. We do have a lot of experienced brokers who do commercial only sales. And there are brokers who like to dabble in commercial once in a while, or that have those opportunities that happen that they want to take advantage of. So just so you kind of have a basis for what to do if you do want to step up your game this year and want to do commercial MLS and have access to that data, you're only going to see a very small percentage on the MLS. The listing I have right here on the screen is a listing that we have also on SEBA as well as on the MLS, but you're not going to usually see commercial sales or commercial opportunities or listings on the Northwest MLS. This is kind of a rare occurrence. So if you do need to access commercial information, and this would be 6-plexes, 12-plexes, grocery stores, gas stations, apartment buildings, things of that nature, you're most likely going to need to utilize the commercial MLS. There is also another commercial portal called LoopNet. LoopNet, for most of you in residential, understand LoopNet is kind of like Zillow. It provides data, but there's not similar types of things or kind of an association or rules and standards around LoopNet. But commercial MLS, they do have a very strong group of brokers that are in our area that post their listings on that site, just like Northwest MLS. So if you want access to commercial MLS, you can utilize my access in our offices. There's no charge for that. You just need to use the access in our office. Either Tacoma, Tukwila, Linwood, or Sumner, you have the ability to do that. Otherwise, you do have to pay for your own commercial MLS access, and that is a minimum of 6 months. And you can go ahead and go to our website for more information on how to set that up. So that's kind of just the mechanics of being a commercial broker at Best Choice Realty. But let's go ahead and just jump in, and let's just say that we wanted to go ahead and write up an offer on this particular commercial property. A lot of investors look for commercial properties, and this is a 50-bedroom, 11-bath, 2-kitchen, 24,000 square foot with a basement property. If you kind of scroll through, it does need some work. But for the right type of investment, this could be a building that could be something really, really great if it was assisted living or group housing or medical offices. That's what this is kind of touting here. They did have it recently appraised, which is good that the agent put that on there. And they dropped the price to 1.2 current days on market. You would think in residential, wow, that's a long time. It actually is not, especially when they drop the price to 1.2. So this is the point in time where you may start to get offers. So how you would write it up is you could click the little button here in Transaction Desk. If you didn't have the Northwest MLS, you can pull down the commercial purchase and sale agreement from the express forms on MLS. Or if you happen to have it on the MLS, it's easy for me just to go ahead and load it right here. While it's loading, if you go to express forms on the MLS and you search commercial, you'll see, if you spell commercial correctly, there we go. You'll see that there's plenty of forms that the MLS has agreed to partner with CEBA in order to utilize these types of forms. So there's industrial listing input sheets. If you go to the next, there's the commercial opportunity. So you'll want to search for the CEBA forms. You could search for them here, and they're coming up just fine. Okay, so if you do need to utilize the express forms, that's how you would find them, or you could use Transaction Desk, and we actually have them right here loaded. So it's commercial sale and it's multifamily, and we click create. As I go through this, I'll show you some of the common mistakes that people are making so that you don't make that mistake when you're doing yours. So what's nice about Transaction Desk, as you guys know, it fills in all the details for you. It doesn't fill in the date, so today's date, the offer expiration date. With commercial, you do want to give the investor or the entity time. It's not like residential where we want, a 1 day. Sometimes it takes a week. So it's not not normal to have the offer expiration date be the 19th, for example, a week to really get this in front of all of the decision makers. That's not uncommon to see an offer expiration date longer than just 24 hours. Obviously, we don't need to put that. And a closing date in commercial, it can take longer to do commercial. So, 60 days would be actually very fast, where it might take 3 months or it might take 4 months to do a closing with this type of property. So I'm going to go ahead at October 18th. So big payouts, but takes more time. That's kind of the way it goes. I'm going to add myself as a buyer. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead, and you can see all of the forms are loaded. Now, some of you are not familiar with some of these forms, and we won't go into every single one of them, but I will go into the CEBA Commercial and Investment Real Estate Purchase and Sale Agreement. This is the same purchase and sale agreement that's on CEBA, or that's on the special form systems that they have available on commercial MLS. So you're not dealing with anything that's not common or that doesn't look the same as if you were working at, say, Kidder Matthews or Keller Williams Commercial. They have the same forms if you look at them right here. So as it's pulling up, I can also send you guys, if you want, you can send me an email and I'll be happy to give you my cheat sheet today. If you want to do that right now, I'll be happy to, after the call, just respond with the cheat sheet. I have that readily available here. We have a Best Choice Realty Commercial Purchase and Sale Agreement cheat sheet that might be helpful for you if you are new to writing your first purchase and sale agreement. So what we're looking for with mutual acceptance is we definitely want to have a CEBA purchase and sale agreement. If it's anything more than 4-plex, which this one is a lot bigger than a 4-plex, we're going to want to see it on a CEBA purchase and sale agreement. So if you do not, say you wrote this on a residential purchase and sale agreement, we would ask you to change that. Legally, that's what needs to happen. There's also a lot of the deals, they may be financed or there may be cash. If it's cash, proof of funds, you wouldn't need the finance addendum. But if you do have to have like seller finance, or maybe the seller is carrying back part of the contract or helping with the down payment, those types of situations with commercial, you're going to want to use the CEBA FIN, the finance addendum. The promissory note is very common in commercial real estate. Unlike residential, where some agents will collect the earnest money right upon mutual acceptance and then deposit it into an escrow account, many commercial brokers like to work with promissory notes, where they don't put the earnest money into escrow until they pass or they clear feasibility. So if you are working with a buyer like that does not want to put their earnest money up upon mutual acceptance, you're going to want to use the CEBA email prom, or the earnest money promissory note. Just like residential, we deal with a lot of foreign investors, so the CEBA 22E, the FIRPTA disclosure, is also a requirement when you are dealing with a foreign entity, when you need to disclose if the seller is a foreign citizen, and there is an acknowledgement by the buyer of that foreign citizenship. So make sure that you know the situation there on the seller, whether they're a foreign citizen or not. If they don't have it, we certainly should ask for it when we write the offer. We should include it in our package. This tenant estoppel certificate, this would be used in this particular scenario that I'm using tonight. I don't need to use the tenant estoppel certificate because there are not people living. There's not tenants on the property where we're asking them, where the lenders will need a copy of that estoppel certificate. Since it's vacant, I won't need to use the CEBA TEC or tenant estoppel certificate. So again, based on your scenario, come to me and I'll help you and advise you on what you need to do for that particular thing. The legal description, just like residential, it is a requirement, and it could make your purchase and sale agreement not good and not even legal. So you do need to make sure that you attach the proper legal description, and you should be using, just like residential, you should be using the legal description from the title company. That's more important even than residential, because there are several changes that are made a lot of times to these zoning and the commercial entities that would affect the purchase and sale agreement. So make sure you get the correct legal description for the commercial property you're working with. Just like residential, there is a Form 17 that is required when representing buyers. We will ask you for that. I'll show you in the purchase and sale agreement. It's kind of an awkward dance that we do with commercial sellers, because a lot of times the entities do not know much, just like those bank-owned properties. They do not know much about commercial, and so, or about the property that they're managing. So you may not get much, even though you ask for a Form 17 to be completed by the seller, you may not get much. You might get, don't know. And that is very common, but however, it's good as a buyer's agent to go ahead and ask for the Form 17. Earnest money deposit receipt from escrow we will require, just like we do for residential, a commission disbursement. You'll like a commercial. A $5 million property at a 3% clip is a $150,000 commission. I think a lot of you would love to have a commission check for $150,000. So those types of commissions are very nice at Best Choice Realty, and we do have those that come through our office. So those are commission disbursements we love paying out on. Title report, still require that. And you still are required to give the law of agency pamphlet and all of the appropriate disclosures. Just because you're commercial doesn't mean that you don't have to do some of those basics that we've talked about in classes prior. If you are dual agent, we also require you to have a buyer agency agreement. You're going to see a lot more of you using buyer agency agreements, but if you're representing both buyer and seller, you're going to want to use a buyer agency agreement and have that with your buyers. Again, I can send this to you. These are the common drafting errors, but we're going to go ahead. I think it's best to learn by just doing, so we're going to go ahead and fill this in. Now with the buyer, if I was just writing my name, that would be my name, Rochelle and Eric Milhite. But what if I wanted to buy it, say Best Choice Realty was going to buy a medical facility on State Street in Tacoma? Well, then I would need to make sure that I have the proper name. Now, is my company, is it an LLC? Is it a corporation? You may want to ask the questions and make sure you're dealing with the correct people. I've had some people doing commercial that hasn't even verified who the buyer or who the entity is, and you run the risk that you may not have a valid contract if you're not using the right appropriate terms. So for example, if it's a trust, the living trust of Maggie West, you need to make sure that everything is spelled correctly on the buyer's name. The purchase price, some of you are writing the price. Like, let's just say it was, let's see, what is our price here? Let's say it was 1.2. Let's say we're going to go ahead and give her 101.2. And because you're not using the transaction desk or express form, some of you are just putting the price in but not typing this out. Because we're dealing with a lot of zeros and numbers, if you do not type it out, it can also lead to some challenges or possible errors that are made. Even on $100,000 can make a big difference in a purchase price. Again, you're filling out a legal form, so make sure that you also have it typed out in Word format as well as in dollar figures. If it's all cash, you just check the box here. If it's financed, you would need to include the financing addendum. Because I'm doing a cash offer, I'm going to go ahead with the all cash. The earnest money, it is common to have a promissory note, so don't be shocked that you get an offer with a promissory note, which we would need to include the CEBA form. And then we never use selling firm here at Best Choice Realty. We always check the box closing agent. The selling broker may, however, transfer the earnest money to the closing agent even if we were using the selling firm. But we want these boxes checked at Best Choice Realty. Buyer will deliver the earnest money no later. We usually do on the last day of the feasibility period defined on section 5 below. Unless you have some other type of arrangement, that's the way I've seen it done most of the time. And then if the earnest money is to be held by the selling firm is over $10,000, we want to have it be a separate interest bearing account. Check that box. And then the following exhibits, we definitely want the illegal A. We want the earnest money, instead of having like the residential where you have to do the drop down menu, this is where you include by checkboxing what you want to include here. So we definitely want the FERPTA, we want the utility, we want, we don't need the tenant estoppel, we don't need the financing because we're cash. I think we're good. Let's see, we got the earnest money, exhibit A. I think we're good on the things we need. The feasibility, we need some more time to do some feasibility. We're going to ask for 60 days, although it is 30 days if not spelled out. And we want to have the books, leases, and agreements. We want those within 2. We want the standard or extended. If not completed, then it would be the standard policy of owner's policy. If it's extended, again, that might be on the basis of different things that need to be done. There's surveys, there's other costs that are incurred. So you do need to understand what type of title policy that your buyer needs. In my case, standard is perfectly fine. And we're going to go ahead and have it done. Let's just have it done by Stewart. Again, I have plenty of commercial agents, but commercial, you're going to want to use a big company like Stewart, Chicago, Fidelity. Those would be the 3 best that I would use. Okay. What's nice about this one, it says a title company of seller's choice if not completed. So if you did not state this of who you wanted, the sellers would then get to choose, and that would be fine if you left this blank. I don't like to leave things blank. As you guys know, I like to fill those in. Closing date, fill this in, and we're going to have Stewart title and escrow, close it. Okay. Again, it's a national company. Buyer and seller do not waive. We want that. Do not waive. Possession date we want on closing. As is. The personal property, we want that portion. If not completed, we'll have the county assess the personal property. There isn't any personal property, but just in case there was. This is the part in agency disclosure where we have to represent the buyer and the seller is represented here. So you do, even if it's dual agency, if I'm representing the buyer and the seller, I'd have to make sure I put that. Assignment may or may not if not completed is fine. The top boxes are the ones that I would check in that section 21. And acceptance, the seller has until the following day. I'm going to go till August 19th. This talks about counteroffers being the second business day, which is very similar to residential. Here's where it talks about commission. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago, you guys, when it talked about commission being part of the purchase and sale agreement for commercial sales. And so this is normal for commercial sales. where the seller agrees to sell the property on the terms and conditions herein and further agrees to pay a commission in a total amount computed in accordance with the listing or commission agreement. If there is no written listing or commission agreement, which a lot of commercial sales, they're off market. You will find that if you get into this, you will have to really get connected with people that specialize in commercial. They often will have basically pocket listings, if you will, and they will have agreed with their sellers to allow buyers to have access to that information, but they're agreeing to pay the seller a commission and the buyer's agent a commission. But you do need to understand what that is. And when you write the contract, you'll need to have an understanding about the seller agreeing to pay the commission of how much. So 6% of the sales price. The commission shall be apportioned. This would be 3% or a certain amount. So this is all negotiated into the purchase and sale agreement. So the seller and the buyer do know, when you're working with a commercial purchase and sale agreement, how much commission is being allocated. And I can tell you the commercial purchase and sale agreements that I'm seeing, they are quite high. And so there is a value for negotiation and proper representation and knowledge base and experience and access to the property that would allow for this type of commission to be allocated in the contract. And as you can see, it auto-filled all of the information here. It did not fill in the address of the party. So I would need to put in, say my company based out of Sumner is buying this. I need to make sure that I fill in all of the details here. Otherwise, it may not be a complete contract, and I don't look like I know what I'm doing. In commercial, you don't want to leave blanks. You want to keep everything filled in accordingly here. So always fill this in. If you don't, you run the risk that somebody could fill it in for you, or somebody could think you're not doing your job correctly. So always cover your bases and make sure everything is filled in correctly here. Okay. This right here, licensed office, this should be filled in as well, but this is already filled in here. If we are sending courtesy notices or copies to the buyer or the entity, say there was a signer out of town that we needed to send courtesy copies of notices to, we could fill that information in here. And then the Exhibit A, this is what confuses a lot of you, because you're just basically typing, some of you are typing in a simple error of a street or a northwest or a number could throw the whole deal off, and we have to have legal get involved. So instead of typing anything in here, I'd rather have you, just like residential, go ahead and attach a copy of the legal description and say, see attached legal description from Stewart Title and Escrow. And usually it's Exhibit A. That's what they call it. Okay. Once I'm done, I can save a copy and I go to the next form. As you guys know, you can go up here and you can go to the next form. The promissory note, the utility addendum would need to be filled out before I submit for signature. So it's really not difficult. Many of you probably think it's a lot more complicated than it is, but actually commercial deals can be very simple if you have the right connections and you have the right relationships with the right people. So not spelling out the price, I see that a lot. Not providing a correct legal description, all terms not filled in, the timelines not adhered to. Remember, just like inspection contingencies, feasibility contingencies are the most important contingencies in a purchase and sale agreement, and you have to adhere to that. And also the earnest money. So if you write earnest money with the promissory note, we don't need to really worry about the promissory or the earnest money note until we pass the feasibility, and that's quite common. But be careful you write that date in your calendar or on your phone, or set a reminder, because if you don't adhere to that, in essence you are waiving your rights and you may be putting your client's earnest money in jeopardy. Not only the earnest money, but they have potential for legal remedies as well when you're dealing with commercial. As is provisions, I'm seeing a lot of addenda where there's as is language being drafted. I'd rather have you guys come to me when you're dealing with commercial and ask me for the proper language that our attorney has drafted for as is language. I'd rather have it drafted in such a way where the buyers understand that they have rights. As a buyer's agent, I would want to make sure that my buyers understood that they had rights and contingencies that protected them. So I wouldn't just want to say buyer is purchasing the home or the property as is. That is not proper in the state of Washington. So, if you need some language that is as is language, come to me and I'll be happy to provide that so you can use that on an addendum. And not advising clients to seek legal counsel as particular questions arise in paragraph 12 of the SEBA purchase and sale agreement. Many of you do not encourage your buyers to also have their attorneys review the purchase and sale agreement, and that can oftentimes provide some kind of crazy instances that I have to jump in and help you solve in the middle of the transaction. Sellers need to disclose everything. Just buyers need to assume the worst about the seller, and they should investigate everything. So during your feasibility contingency, uncover as much as you possibly can. Basically, just assume the worst, that the seller has not disclosed anything, because most of the Form 17s that I see do not disclose much about commercial property. You'd want to know as much information as you possibly could if you're representing a buyer, especially in something like we're seeing here with Charlene Little's listing, which looks very as is. I mean, as you look at the pictures, it's going to need some work. So I'd want to know as much information as I possibly could. May want to have my buyer consult with the city of Tacoma, check the zoning, make sure all of that work is done prior to my feasibility contingency expiring. As you can see here, ideas to consider: the earnest money needs to be significant. You cannot really get away with a 1% earnest money in commercial. You need to try to get them between 2 to 5%. If you can avoid promissory notes, you're definitely going to be seen much better, because like I said, most of the commercial sales that I see come through our office and others that I review have promissory notes. So if you want to kind of put your best foot forward, maybe try to avoid using a promissory note and put the earnest money into an escrow account, showing that the buyers are very serious and they have the intent to move forward with the purchase. Be careful with environmental indemnities, and the timelines for environmental could be 7 to 9 months. So if you can see red flags in the agent remarks, or you're running into issues during feasibility with environmental studies that you're doing, you may want to go ahead and ask for an extension before you get close to that feasibility expiring. You're going to have a better chance of keeping the deal together if you can show good faith that you have done some studies and you are needing some extensions to go with the environmental reviews. And non-refundable earnest money clauses also need to be written by our attorney. We have an approved language, and we've had some of you guys, hopefully nobody on this call, writing earnest money clauses that are not good. They're not written properly, and so they're not, there's some confusion, and so that becomes very legal when you're dealing with a $50,000 earnest money check that becomes non-refundable, and then we have an issue with the seller keeping $50,000 versus it being applied to the purchase and sale agreement price. So those are some things to consider. If you want me to send this to you, I'd be happy to do so. Just send me an email tonight, and I'd be happy to send you my cheat sheet on the SEBA purchase and sale agreement. If you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. I can put you in touch with brokers that only focus on commercial here in our office. I have enough experience to be able to review the commercial purchase and sale agreements that I see coming through our office. But if I do have issues, or I do need, if it's a sizable contract with a great amount of commission, I do employ our attorney that I retain to review and give assistance when needed. So I do have that backing if you guys need to utilize that. If there's any questions that you have after tonight's call, just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to go over that in later calls. I know we don't cover commercial enough, and I apologize for a lot of you who want to really expand that. I would highly recommend, if you want to expand that part of your business, SEBA does have non-member pricing where you can get great training. I've been able to learn a lot about the SEBA purchase and sale agreements and the way to practice and utilize commercial forms just by attending those classes. Even when I was not a member, I attended some of those classes. And it's commercialmls.com is the place that you would go, and you log in and password. But I believe they have education right here, upcoming classes and events. And this is where if you wanted to get information about opportunity zones, understanding opportunity zones, networking, so you can really connect with people that do commercial, financing, all of these classes are coming up, and there are non-member pricing and member pricing for these classes. And that's what I would recommend if you're wanting to really dive in and expand that part of your business going forward. So with that, I'll let you guys go. Hope you have a great week. Hopefully this was helpful for you to give you a baseline. And we'll catch you next Monday, same time, same place, with another topic. Have a great week.